Hello, welcome back to Kim Reads as we continue with Kit Saves the Day. Chapter 2, Just Plain Will. Will was a quick, quiet worker. With his help, all the ripest tomatoes were picked by lunchtime. Mother brought a tray of sandwiches outside, and Dad bought a pitcher of milk so they would have lunch on the shady back porch. Will looked at the sandwiches as if he could devour them all. Kit knew how he felt. She was always hungry herself. Mother often teased Kit that Kit was eating them out of house and home. But before they could eat, Aunt Millie brought out a basin of hot water, a bar of soap, and a hand towel. Wash up, children, she ordered Kit, Sterling, and Will. Kit and Sterling washed quickly, but Will pushed off his sleeves, plunged his hand in the hot water, and sighed with pleasure. He lathered his hands, cupped them, and scooped up handful after handful of water to wash his face, letting the warm soapy water run down his neck. Then he scrubbed his arms up to his elbows and dried them with a towel. Water drops glistened on his hair. Kit realized soap and hot water were a luxury like Will probably often didn't see. "You're a good worker, Will," said Aunt Millie as she filled his milk glass. "You know that what you're doing in a garden." "I ought to," said Will with his winning grin. "My family had a farm back in Texas." "Don't you miss your family?" asked Mother. "I do, ma'am," answered Will, "and I miss the farm. It used to be beautiful. My father grew wheat. In the spring, the fields looked like a green ocean. Then the hard times came. My father couldn't make any money selling his wheat. After that, it seemed like nature turned against us because it never rained. The wheat dried up, dead and brown. It cracked under your feet when you walked through the fields, and the soil was nothing but dust," Will sighed. "A couple of big windstorms came and just blew the farm away, scattered it. My family's gone too. They packed up everything and left." "How come you didn't go with them?" Kit asked Will. "Kit," Mother scolded gently, "that's a personal question." "It's all right, ma'am," said Will. He looked at Kit. "See, my father was a proud man. It about killed him when we lost the farm and he couldn't feed us anymore. I knew he hated having to see him brought so low. And I knew he was one more mouth he couldn't feed, one more pair of feet he couldn't buy shoes for. So when my family packed up to leave Texas, I made up my mind to go off on my own. I figured it was time for me to take care of myself." Kit understood. She felt guilty about her appetite and about growing so much and so fast. She was always needing bigger clothes and shoes, too. She felt like Alice in Wonderland, who suddenly grew so big she filled the entire house. Except that Alice's clothes grew, which was very convenient. Kit's arms and legs dangled out of most of her clothes as if she were gangly daddy long legs. Kit thought Will was brave and noble to have left a family so he wasn't expense to them anymore. "Did you run away?" Sterling asked. "Yep," said Will. "I've been almost everywhere since then. I follow the crops. I went north to harvest potatoes in the fall, south to pick walnuts in the winter, and easy to pick strawberries in the spring. Now I'm on my way west to Oregon for the apple harvest." Dad spoke, and Kit heard something that sounded like envy in his voice. "You've seen a lot of country for some of your age," he said to Will. "Yes, sir, and met a lot of people, too," said Will, "but none kinder than you folks." He stood up and put his cap back on his head. "Thank you for the fine lunch. I'll be on my way now." Dad glanced at Mother and Aunt Millie. All three seemed to have come to agreement without saying a word. Kit was happy when she heard Dad say, "Just a minute, Will. We'll be up to our elbows picking and preserving tomorrow. We'll be glad to have your help if you'd like to stay. We can't pay you, but we can feed you and give you a nice place to sleep." "I'll give you a haircut, too," said Aunt Millie. "You look like you haven't had one since you left home." Will's grin lit his whole face. "Thanks," he said. "I'd like that. I'll stay." "Good," said Kit. "You can tell us all about the places you've been." At first, Will was shy at dinner, but he soon grew comfortable and talkative. All the boarders liked him. Mother beamed at him, and Aunt Millie gave him an extra large portion of food. Dad, who was always interested in places he had never been, asked Kit to bring the atlas to the table. He opened the atlas to a map of the United States so that Will could show them where he was in Texas and point out all the places that he had never been to before he came to Ohio. Kit found Glacier Park, Montana on the map and told Will about Charlie and the work he was doing there with the CCC. After dinner, Mr. Pack played his bass fiddle while Mrs. Bell played the piano, and Will taught them how all to dance the Texas two-step. We haven't had much fun since Charlie left, Kit said as she led Will outside carrying a lantern, blankets, and a pillow. Will had chosen to not sleep in the house. Where do you want to sleep, she asked. In the garage or on the porch? I'll sleep on the ground, said Will. I'm not used to a roof anymore. Makes me feel too closed in. All right, said Kit. Good night. Good night, said Will. As Kit climbed to her attic room, she thought Will was wise to be outdoors. So stuffy in here, she sighed, flopping on her bed. Aunt Millie, who shared Kit's room, looked up at her from a book of Shakespeare's sonnets. What can't be endured must be endured, she said. Kit fanned herself in her hand. The house feels hot and crowded to me tonight, she said. It's getting on my nerves. Anyone can get along in a palace, dear child, said Aunt Millie. Live and squash together. There is a true test of character. Kit loved Aunt Millie, but sometimes she thought it would be nice to be alone. She clicked on her gooseneck lamp and opened her favorite book, Robin Hood and His Adventures, hoping that reading would soothe and absorb her as it normally did. But the imaginary adventures of Robin Hood and his merry men didn't interest her tonight. Instead, Kit found herself staring at the photo of Charlie and his CCC buddies, which she propped up in front of her lamp. Kit's thoughts flew far and wide, out in the velvety black night to Montana, where Charlie was, and to faraway places where Will had been. What she longed for was a real adventure of her own. The next day, Kit was hanging the sheets on the clothesline. A hot, sultry wind lifted the sheets so that they fluttered like moist, white wings around her. Aunt Millie had set up an open-air barber shop next to the clothesline. She cut Sterling's hair, and now she was at work on Will. I appreciate this, ma'am, he said. I don't meet barbers in the jungle. What's the jungle? Asked Sterling. That's what we hobos call our camps, exclaimed Will. A jungle is usually close to the railroad tracks. There's one around here in Cincinnati near Union Station, right next to the river. Do you cook over a campfire? Asked Kit dreamily, and tell stories about places you've been, and sing songs and sleep under the stars? Well, Will began as if he were starting a big, long explanation. Then he seemed to change his mind. He simply answered, Yep. I've seen some of those camps, Aunt Millie said, snipping through Will's thick hair with her sharp scissors. They look mighty uncomfortable. Hot in the summer, cold in the winter, wet in the rain, and buggy to boot. Maybe, said Kit, but there'd be no rugs to beat or gutters to clean, and you could just come and go as you please. It sounds fine to me. Aunt Millie shook her head. I wonder if life is lonely and hard, she said. I believe most people are good-hearted, but not everyone's kind to hobos. She untied the cloth she put around Will's shoulders and shook the hair off it. You're done, just plain Will, she said, and much improved, if I do say so myself. Thank you, ma'am, said Will, as Aunt Millie went inside. Will stood and brushed off his pants. I'm sure glad I stopped here, he said to Kit and Sterling. Why did you stop at our house? Asked Kit. How'd you know we'd be nice? I saw the sign, said Will. What sign? Asked Kit and Sterling together. Come on, said Will, tilting his head toward the fence. I'll show you. Kit and Sterling followed Will to the corner of the yard where the fence meet. Look, said Will, on the fence post. Someone had drawn a sketch of a cat. That means a kind-hearted woman lives here. Oh, exclaimed Kit, enchanted. Are there other signs, too? Yep, said Will, lots of them. There was secret code we hobos used to tell each other what to expect the places to go. Usually the sign is scratched on a fence or drawn on a building or a sidewalk with a chalk or coal. Can you show us more? Asked Kit. Sure, said Will. Sterling, who liked to draw, always had a pencil stub and a piece of scrap paper in his pocket. He gave the pencil and paper to Will now. Will drew one horizontal line. One line means it's a doubtful place. Better not stop here, he said. He added 3 more lines and explained, but 4 lines mean the lady of the house will give you food if you do chores. Will drew a circle with 2 arrows pointing out of it. That means get out fast. And this, he drew a big V, means pretend to be sick. Why would you do that? Asked Sterling. If you pretend to be sick, folks will help you and feed you. But isn't it lying to fake an illness? Asked Kit. I suppose it is, said Will. But on the road, well, sometimes you have to do whatever it takes to survive. Do you ever steal? Asked Kit. Will took a deep breath. Let me ask you this, he said. Suppose you work hard all morning helping a farmer harvest potatoes, and at the end he gives you 2 wormy potatoes for your labor. You slip 2 more potatoes in your pocket without telling him. Is it stealing? Kit and Sterling didn't answer. Hunger changes the rules somewhat, said Will. He drew a circle and a square and put a dot in the middle of each. This sign means you bet you'd leave on a stingy farmer's vote. It means a bad-tempered man lives there. Kit nudged Sterling. I bet that sign is outside Uncle Hendrick's house, she said. Kit's uncle lived downtown. He was well-to-do, very stingy, and often mean. Signs aren't the only ways hobos help each other, said Will. When hobos ride into town on the train, we go to the jungle, and we spread out and look for chores to do for food. Maybe I sweep out a store and the storekeeper gives me a couple of onions. I'll bring them back to the jungle and put them together with everyone's food to make a hobo stew. See, onions alone aren't great, but add them to a pot of stew and there's more food for all. It tastes better too. Hobo stew, said Kit, savoring the words. I wish I could try some. Will said his thank you and goodbyes early that afternoon, explaining he had planned to spend the night near Union Station and then hop a freight train heading west the next day. Kit was very sorry to see him go. It's duller than ever around here, she griped to Sterling later as she took the dry sheets off the clothesline and put them in the laundry basket. Will's the only interesting thing that's happened all summer. Sterling agreed. I like hearing about the jungle and the hobos, he said. He patted his pocket where he kept his pencil stub and scrap paper. I like the secret science Will taught us too. Didn't that hobo stew sound so good? Asked Kit. All at once, she gasped. Oh no, she said. We didn't give Will anything for the stew. Kit and Sterling looked at each other in dismay, and then Kit had an idea. You know what? She said eagerly. I bet if we asked Mother and Aunt Millie, and they would give us some food, we could bring it down to the jungle near Union Station and give it to Will to put in the hobo stew. I don't, Sterling began doubtfully. Listen, Sterling, Kit interrupted. Remember that stingy farmer and the wormy potatoes Will told us about? Sterling nodded. Well, we're worse than the farmer if we don't give Will some of the tomatoes and beans he picked, said Kit. We owe Will some of the food for the stew. He worked hard helping us, didn't he? Sterling nodded again. Besides, aren't you dying to see the jungle? Said Kit. I am. She hoisted the laundry basket into her hip and spoke with a mixture of determination and excitement. As soon as I finish my chores, I'll talk to the grown-ups, and then we'll go find Will. And that's the end of that chapter. See you later.